I see me. I'm not muted. I'm not.
Yeah, you're on. We're live. We're good.
Okay.
You'll be good.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Yarn Thing podcast with Marley Bird. I'm your host, Marley Bird. You can catch the Yarn Thing podcast live every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. That's 12 o'clock on the East Coast, 9 o'clock on the West Coast, and 11 o'clock in the Midwest. If you are anywhere else in the world or would like to join us live for the podcast, please Google what time 10 o'clock Mountain Time is for you. I do live in Denver, Colorado. You can come and join the fun. Better yet, now that the podcast is actually a video podcast, all you need to do is click subscribe right here to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that little bell notification or that bell button, and you will get notified whenever I go live or release a video here on the channel. As you know, I do both knitting and crochet videos, and we are sprinkling in some other maker or craft videos. So hopefully you are a Marley's minion and you've hit subscribe and you're getting those notifications. We are blessed to have wonderful sponsors of this, of this great podcast, So I want to say thank you to them. I'm going to say thanks to Creative Bug, Craftsy.com, Aaron Lane Bags, Buffalo Wool Company, and Stitches.events. And last but not least, Red Heart Yarns, where I'm the proud national spokesperson, and it's the home of Chic Sheet by Marley Bird Yarn. By Marley Bird. Geez, I keep saying Marley Bird Yarn. By Marley Bird. Eventually, one day, Marley Bird Yarn. It must be some sort of Freudian slip. You can learn more about our sponsors by visiting the Marley Bird website, clicking on the podcast drop-down menu, and there's a list of all the sponsors there. Please go by, tell them hello, and thank them for sponsoring your favorite podcast. Okay, guys, so I have a guest on the show that we've known each other for a long time. Literally, I've known her since I first started in this industry, and so I don't know that long, but I've known who she is because she is I want to call her epic. Like she is part of this industry. She is part of the fabric of the crochet and knitting industry that I know. And so I'm excited to have Karen Whooley back on the podcast today to tell us a little bit about herself, for those of you who might not know her, and to talk about her newest book, talk about her anniversary that she's celebrating, and kits and fiber festivals and all the good stuff. So without further ado, let's welcome Karen to the podcast. Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody.
I am so glad you're joining us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It's nice. It's been a while since you've been on the show.
Yeah, it's been over, oh gosh, probably 18 months, 2 years, somewhere in there.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Well, it's nice to have you back. So this is, again, it's nice to have returning guests first time. So it's a little bit different, right? You actually have to like get ready.
Yeah. To put on clothes. On and my hair's done.
I understand. I totally understand. For people who, we have a lot of new listeners now that the podcast is over here on YouTube. And so there are people who are familiar with you from the original podcast that I've been doing for 11 years, but for all the newbies, I want to make sure that we give them your story, your backstory. So I'm going to have you go ahead and jump in and kind of, give the rundown of how it is that you learned to crochet, how you got into this industry, and all that good stuff.
Okay. We're going to have to jump back to 1974 when my grandmother taught me to crochet. I was 7 years old, so now you all know how old I am. But I was 7, and she learned to crochet from her grandmother in Italy. So I learned all the Italian laces. So that's where my background is.
Right.
But she was a woman far, far ahead of her time and thought I watched way too much television. So she gave me actually, I have it right here, this plastic crochet hook. Nice. So if you guys can see it. And the icky yellow and green yarns of the 70s, the acrylics that were really rough, and she taught me all my basic stitches. And then she had me cover a coat hanger with double crochet.
Okay.
And at that point it was hooked. In 2 hours I had learned all of that. And then the next time I saw her, which was probably a week or two later because she was really close by, she gave me a size 6 steel and size 10 thread, and I did lace for probably 5-10 years.
Wow.
I mean, they did other stuff, but you know, my older cousins were all having babies, so I was making baby clothes and all that kind of stuff too. But the cool thing about learning from my grandmother is that she only spoke Italian. So I learned everything in Italian. And when I would buy a pattern at the store, she couldn't read the pattern. So we would take a magnifying glass and we'd look at the picture. And I learned to crochet from the picture.
Wow.
So I think that's why I'm a designer.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I never made anything exactly like the pattern was actually written. And I've always changed, you know, I'd change an edging or I'd change a construction or something like that. But then as I grew up, I mean, I was crocheting through college, you know, making things for my cousins who were having babies, other family members, Christmas gifts. And then when in 1996, when I was pregnant with my son, I was really sick with my pregnancy and I stayed home. And I started designing, or not designing, but went back to crochet a lot. I mean, more than I was doing before. And I found Crochet Partners. If anybody else out there remembers Crochet Partners.
I remember Crochet Partners.
Yeah, I found them out on CompuServe. That tells you. And I met other crocheters that I had no idea there was this world of crochet out there. And because I was self-taught reading patterns, you know, I would always change things up. And so I started this little mini website on, I don't even remember those free websites we used to have, you know, Yahoo used to have them. And I would just, it was like a blog that was just showing stuff that I was making. And shortly thereafter, early 1998, I met my absolute favorite designer, Terry Kimbrough of Leisure Arts. She does all the fancy laces and stuff like that. She did baby clothes and stuff like that, but her lace was beyond what I would ever even think about designing at the time. And she encouraged me to submit my first design. So in 1998, I submitted my first designs to Annie's Attic, and they bought them.
Wow.
And my daughter was 6 months old, and that's when my career started.
Oh my gosh. So that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Wow. Yeah. Isn't it amazing how it's just a little something like that? Somebody say, you know what, you should do this. And then it just sparks everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had not even a glimmer of being a designer at all. But she saw, because she and I are about the same age, even though she'd been designing for years and years. And she knew my backstory, and she saw how I was putting things together. And she just said, you've got to try this. I think you'd do well. And sure enough, my very first designs were picked up in a magazine. So
that's so great. What were your first designs?
They were actually a set of 3 dishcloths that were floral motifs. So they were kind of like, I wish I had pulled them out. I didn't pull them out. They're made out of cotton, and they have flowers in the center, and then they're almost like granny squares coming out from, you know, a traditional granny square, but different shapes.
Okay.
So it kind of if you go to my website, you can see.
Yeah. No. That's cool though. But I think it's important for people to know, you know, it doesn't have to be a big sweater to have your first design. It can be something small, like a dishcloth. It was
I even have, it's in my closet, because you're seeing me in my studio right now. Mm-hmm. I'm in the middle of our family room, because the 2 bedrooms are my kids' bedrooms, but the wall facing that way is going to be my office when my son graduates from college next year. So I have my first check that I'm framing, and I'm putting it up on my wall, because that was like crazy, you know. I didn't know that I could do anything.
That's fantastic. So here you go. You have your first design accepted by Annie's Attic, and you know, you're like, okay, well, this is kind of cool. That was neat. I think I might do that again. How did it transition into something that you were doing all the time then?
Well, I think my husband, I have to be honest, my husband was really skeptical at the time, because I had just come off of working full time in a computer industry. I used to write software for dental offices. And so he was thinking, okay, you got this one check, but this is something sustainable. And I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids at the time. They were, Cassie was 6 months, and Tyler was almost 4. No, he had just turned 3 when I sold the first designs. So my business kind of started small. I mean, I did things as I could, you know, with 2 small kids. I mean, nap times and at bedtime, you know, at night. I was up till midnight crocheting things. And so, you know, I just started with, because Annie's was so open to my patterns, I would just keep submitting things to them. And anything I didn't sell, I would start self-publishing. And I had a little business going on my blog of people buying actually print patterns, because back then we didn't have PDFs, or we did, but they weren't as prevalent as they are now.
Yeah.
So people would buy my patterns. I'd be shipping off patterns. I opened up the store to having Brittany hooks, if you, the original walnuts.
We love. I was going to say, we love Brittany hooks. They were on the podcast and telling us their story. I mean, they're just fantastic people.
Yeah, those were for years. That's all I ever used was my original walnut Brittany hooks.
Wow.
But then as the kids got older, I started creating my own leaflets, even in print, and they were selling those. And that was 2004. I was contacted by the Crochet Guild of America, which I was a member of, but I hadn't done anything. And, you know, I hadn't gone to any events or really done much with them. And their professional development day chair at that time was Darla Fanton, the designer. And she called me and she said, you need to come and teach how to self-publish. So
wow, way back then, huh?
Way back then. Actually, I was team teaching with Carolyn Christmas and oh gosh, what's her name? Oh, Janet Reifeld.
Okay.
I don't know if you know both of them, but
I've heard their names. And
they talked about more of the how to design type of thing, and I was the technical person. I was the one telling you what kind of camera to buy, what kind of computer, what software you needed, and all that. And it was kind of fun. So for 6 hours, we did this 6-hour presentation, and that was my first CGOA. And they also had me teaching. I think I taught 6 or 7 classes that year, and that's where my national teaching took off in 2004. So
that is so awesome.
Yeah.
So once you started doing all this, was your husband like, all right, I think you could do this?
Yeah, absolutely. He's always been my biggest cheerleader. I just, you know, that's the money side that it, you know, makes everybody kind of crazy.
Girl, I know.
And I mean, honestly, we're not in it to make millions and millions and millions. We're in it because we love it, and because we've got our tribes out there who, you know, follow us and they want to see stuff. And I've got all the stuff in my brain that's got to come out somehow. So
right. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah. There was at one point in my career, I think I've said this story before, that I was at a TNA and we didn't have enough money to like get gas in the car or get groceries. Like we were broke.
Oh, yeah.
And my husband called me and he was so nice. He was just like, honey, I know you're working as hard as you can and you're really trying. I just don't know how much longer we can do this.
Yeah.
And I mean, but it had been 2 years at that point, you know? He was like, look, I know you really want to. I just don't know. And I remember I was just like, I'm right on that cusp. Like I just know I can't give up yet.
Exactly. I ended up actually working for one of my local yarn shops for about 5 years just to bring in the extra cash.
Yep.
You know, you just got to do what you got to do.
Yep. I worked at a shop called Knit Knack. Those of you who have been listening to the podcast for years and years know, I actually used to do the podcast at Knit Knack. And I taught there for 5 years. I taught how to knit and crochet, and I would just do all sorts of stuff. I loved working there. But like you, it was to bring in extra money because I just wasn't making very much at all.
Yeah.
So
I taught at Great Yarns in Everett. So if you know Great Yarns from Stitches.
Yep, I do.
That's the shop I used to teach at, and I worked 1 day a week. I was the crochet guru that people knew. I was there Mondays, and they could come in and ask their questions on Mondays.
That is so funny. You know, so when I started working there, I was very familiar with crochet, but I was still, I probably had only been knitting like a year or two. And so, Jerry had hired me for crochet classes. And then she goes, you know what? I've been teaching these beginner knitter classes for 2 years or a while now. You know, I really want a break. Would you like to take them over? And I was like, sure. So my first knitting class, like I was reading ahead of the class to like teach myself how to fix mistakes. So then I could teach them how to fix mistakes. So it was like I was thrown in the deep end, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's made me a better knitter because of it. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny how things turn out like that. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
reason I mentioned that story is, are you a knitter at all?
Oh, I am a knitter.
Yes.
It took me 30 years from the time I learned to crochet to learn to knit because everyone in my family is a thrower. And my grandmother, my other grandmother, not the grandmother that taught me to crochet, she was the knitter, and she refused to teach me to purl until I could knit. I'm trying to remember now. It was a 6-inch swatch of knitting without dropping stitches, and I was like 7 or 8 years old. How can you expect an 8-year-old? I mean, just so. And then when I got married, my mother-in-law is a knitter. She's a beautiful knitter. She tried to teach me, but she throws. And then finally, I found another shop that was doing just drop-in learn to knit classes, and they showed me continental knitting. And I mean, that day it was like the sky opened and the sun came out. You know, I could do it. My first project was knitting a sweater for my husband that he still wears.
Nice, nice. It's amazing what learning continental as a crocheter can do. I mean, it's life-changing. It's just. It's just like you said, the sky opens up, the sun comes out, and you're just like, oh, this is what it's all about. Like I totally remember that. I totally remember that.
It was crazy.
I love it. So for your 20th anniversary, I know that you did something special to celebrate it. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. 20 years in this industry, honestly, is a big deal. I mean, in the 20 years, I've seen designers come and go, teachers come and go, people who had big hits and suddenly are in real estate now. You know, that kind of thing has happened. So I thought I needed to do something. So I teamed up with Inner Yarn Zen. She's an indie dyer, and we came up with a custom color. She calls it Elusive Jellyfish Nebula. And this is the yarn. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a gradient. It's a gradient. And I designed, you know what, I'm going to go grab it. It's
Go
right
ahead.
here. It's right behind me. This is a cowl. It's my biggest pet peeve with triangular shawls, especially since I'm a bigger woman, is that they never stay on. So this is one of those bandana cowl style.
Yes, I just made one too.
Oh, and it's been like...
Oh, it's upstairs. I just made one too for that very same reason.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know, well, I saw knitters starting to make them, and I thought, oh, you know what? Crocheters need to want a pattern for these too. So that's what this is. And so actually, I introduced it at CGOA in Portland this last July at the market. And it's kind of funny because I did do a little tiny bit of hype before the event, but when the doors opened between my new book launch, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and this pattern, I had a line around the table. We sold almost everything. I think it came home with 2 skeins of yarn.
Oh wow!
So I've got more on order right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really fun because it starts out. I don't know how you did yours, but mine has started out as a triangle shawl. And then when it got wide enough to go over my head, I started working in the round.
So what I did, I started off as a triangle shawl, and then I actually made it into a triangle shawl. So the one that's upstairs, I should show you. I put buttons on one side. So like 2 really big decorative buttons, because the shawl itself is like filet crochet. And so then when you fold the 2 ends in like this, one end, the filet actually acts as buttonholes. So it goes over the buttons.
Great.
So then it just puts on, right? It's so easy. And then last year during the tournament of, not the tournament of stitches, the game day cowl, it was like a mystery crochet along thing I did during the Super Bowl. And so it was very similar. We made it like a triangle, like it was going to be a shawl. So everybody's like, oh, we're making a shawl. And then I did, like, one of the clues was, nope, now you're going to fold the ends over like this, and we're going to join them together and work a cowl neck portion on top of that. And so then that fit over. People were like, this is so different. And I mean, honestly, the only reason I thought about it, I was in my bed and I was like, I'm so tired of knit or crocheting on this shawl. What else could I do? And I'm like, oh, let's turn it into a cowl. So it was just a happy accident.
Yeah. And for me, it was, I'm so tired of shawls falling off my body. It was like, and then finally found a shawl pin that actually works as magnetic. It was that they had those at CGOA, and those are actually keeping my shawls on. But
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I love it.
But
I love it. So that is so great. So that
yeah,
kit, you said you have more yarn on order. Is that
yeah.
still something people can order from your website?
Yes, I have 2 in stock right now. I think I have a dozen more coming. I can't remember. A dozen more coming because I am going to have them at the show coming up next month. But I'm also selling them. But the kit comes with the yarn, and the pattern for $41.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and it's only print. I'm not selling the pattern PDF yet.
Yeah.
I want this to go for at least the full year of my anniversary. So
I love it. I love it. So we've
yeah.
got a question from the chat room from a lady called, her name is Karen McKenna, and she would like to know, what is CGOA?
Hi, Karen. CGOA is the Crochet Guild of America, and actually in 2019 it's going to be their 25th anniversary. It's a actually international organization of crocheters. It started at grassroots as a hobbyist organization, and it's grown. I mean, I credit CGOA to my career in a lot of ways because I got started teaching there, and I learned a lot through their professional development program. But the hobbyist, anybody who's not interested in being a designer, a tech editor, or whatever, they have so many resources available to them.
Absolutely.
So,
It's great. And those of you
yeah.
who are kind of curious why we're laughing, Karen McKenna, she's actually part of the board, right? Isn't she part of the board?
Well, she just came off the board, but yes, she was on the board of directors.
Yeah. So it's funny. Hi, Karen. I love you, Karen. Very cool. So here you are, and you just briefly mentioned, so you're at CGOA, you sold the kits, and you had a new book come out. So let's talk about books in general, because you are one of the first people, if I am remembering correctly, you came out with like a Rock Your Socks crochet book. And did you self-publish that?
I did self-publish that.
Like, that's, in my mind, that's what when I think of you, I think of one of the first people to actually self-publish items.
Yes, I started self-publishing books in 2002. Actually, I had 3 leaflets. They were called the Simply series: Simply Baby Afghans, Simply Afghans, and Simply Handbags. And those were like traditional Annie's and Leisure Arts leaflets, just 6 patterns. But in 2012, I kind of dipped my toe into book publishing, and that was Crochet Rock Socks. And actually, the Sheba guys helped me with that book because I had this vision, and I knew that Jason and Shannon would run with my vision because Shannon and I grew up in the same era of rock and roll. Yeah. So I did all the socks in that book were based on rock and roll from the 50s to current at that time. So I had everything from Elvis to Bon Jovi to, the Rolling Stones. Yeah. And so I have the book right here. Let me grab that one. I didn't pull that one out because it's so old, but as you can see, Crochet Rock Socks, that's, Freddie Mercury, We Are the Champions, famous move. So he had the model do all sorts of stuff. So my vision was that I couldn't pitch this to someone else because no one would take my vision of making this rock and roll and the nitty gritty of rock and roll, the things, like Bruce Springsteen's famous Pockets picture is in here, redone with, I gotta find that one. Oh, come on. But the We Are the Champions, we have, here we go, Born in the USA socks.
Uh-huh.
Perfect. I told Shannon what I wanted, and he just went with it. So this was my first book that I self-published.
That's the book. That's what I remember.
Yeah. And this book it's still selling. Socks are so popular right now. It's so crazy how it's selling.
That's so great. So here you go. You have that book. You have several other books, and you have a new one out.
I do. I have Coastal Crochet, which we kind of mentioned.
Uh-huh.
This one, I don't even know how to describe this one other than it was a labor of love because I grew up in California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we had beaches and stuff there, but there's nothing like going down the coast to Monterey, Carmel. And that is my favorite part of California. That's where my husband proposed to me. It's like, it's just an awesome area. And just sitting on the beach is it's kind of like my zen. all the troubles go away. My most creative actually, if I'm, at the beach and things like that. So that's where this book came from. And I wanted it to be items that I would wear to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm on the West Coast, our beaches are a little colder than Southern California. We're rockier, the rocky shores, the big crashing waves. So
they're
that's
beautiful. They're so pretty.
Yeah, I love, Monterey on up to the Canadian border that is my beach. My best friend lives in Huntington Beach, California, and she has the sun and the, all the beach bodies and all that. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not my thing. I like this stuff. So I have 5 shawls, 4 garments, and 3 accessories. A hat. This is my favorite. This mitt. The mitts. Oops, can you see that?
Kind
the
of.
mitts and the cowl.
Yeah.
And then the sweater right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. This is the number 1 selling or the number 1 favorited pattern from the book. This is Beachcomber, and it's I'm going to try to bring it up a little closer. This is the waffle stitch pullover. Gosh, my brain is not working. I need more coffee this morning.
That's okay. I love that.
And everybody loves this one. And then hanging back there is the cover photo. That's Storm done in cables, but it's a tank top that's kind of, I like it because I need to make one for me, but if you have any sort of roll that you want to hide, that will hide it.
Really? Well, now you're speaking my language.
It's a way, I don't know what it is about that cable, but it just kind of like doesn't let the fabric just
stick
to
you.
It moves with your body.
I love it.
It just skims it. So that's
perfect.
And then I have, I always use indie dyed yarns. So I have shawls like this one. This is the fiber seed. This is Deep Blue Sea, which actually I probably should mention. I'm doing a crochet along with this here locally.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. It's kind of, I'm going to pull it back a little. It's kind of a, oh gosh, not a parallelogram. It's the other one. Trapezoid.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So it started as a half circle at the top, and then I started building points out of it. But this one is perfect for those variegated yarns that crocheters don't like because they pull too much.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what it did with this yarn.
Yeah, that's really pretty. We have a question in the chat room. Lynette. Hi, Lynette. Lynette would like to know, how large do your patterns run? For example, do you make plus size?
Absolutely. I'm a plus size girl too, guys. Beach side, I think, goes to 3. Let's see. Mist, which is a jacket, goes to 3X. There's coastline, or not? Yeah, coastline goes to 3X. And when I say 3X, I'm talking about a bust of up to 54 inches.
Yeah.
So, and then Beachcomber, I think, is also 3X. I have to just remember, because that one I know I had to adjust a couple times.
I'll let you know, Karen McKenna says that Storm is on her hook right now. She is crocheting that right now.
She's doing it in red, and it is absolutely fabulous.
Well, she's in Florida, so that's like perfect for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then this one, Beachcomber, is 2X, but it goes up to a finished bust of 58 inches. So it's supposed to be
oversized.
Oversized. So even if you don't want it oversized, I mean, you've got enough room in that one.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah. So plus is always there. I mean, I'll start it extra small, but I'll go to 2, 3, sometimes even 4X.
Yeah. Perfect.
Depending on the pattern.
Perfect. We have another question here. This is from Jeanette Mervaux, I think is how she says her name. It says, what's the average difficulty level of the items in your book?
I would say, well, I'm kind of known for making complex patterns that are simple. Everything looks really complex, but it's actually simple. I always say intermediate, but I know a lot of advanced beginners who are making like this one and that one. And So I would say advanced, beginner, intermediate is what I would say. But I fully support all of my patterns. So if you have a question, you can always go to my Ravelry group or my website and contact me.
Perfect. So, now, people are asking where it is that they can purchase this fantastic book.
Well, there's lots of places, actually. If you want a printed copy with a free Ravelry download, you can only buy that on my website. That's the only place you can get the free Ravelry download. If you want the print book, it's available on Amazon and, Amazon and Barnes & Noble has it. If you go to my website and go to KarenWhooley.com/coastal crochet with both C's of coastal and crochet capitalized, you'll see all of the places it's available.
Perfect.
It's on Kindle, it's on Nook, it's on Kobo, it's on, iBooks.
So just so everybody knows, I have all of Caitlin has done a really good job. She's put all of Karen's links that she is mentioning, like Karen's website, follow her on Facebook, on Instagram, learn on YouTube, shop her Ravelry patterns, join her Ravelry group. All of those links are in the show notes. So I've put the show notes in the video description of this video. I've also posted it several times in the chat room. If you guys are interested, everything you need is right there. So that way you don't have to be like, wait a minute, what did she say? It's all right there for you. So that way you have it. Okay. Because we want you to find her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is not some secret we're trying to keep over here. So as you're making these items for Coastal Crochet, the first thing that pops into my mind is that there's a lot of people who, when they think of crochet in general, they either think of doilies or they think of something like really thick, heavy fabric that they aren't going to want to wear, so they just want to make blankets. The other thing they think of is definitely not using something for the coast, whether it's in Southern California or Northern Washington, whatever it is. So as you sit down to put things together like this, like, what are some of the things that you thought of? And then you've already mentioned that you tried to use hand-dyed yarns. Let's talk about the different fibers of the yarns and the different weights of the yarns that you chose for your book.
Okay. Well,
it's a lot there.
Well, let's start with the weight of the yarn first. When I was learning to crochet, I did a lot of lace. So I was using the threads and stuff like that. And then what I learned from my grandmother at that point is that crochet is a bulky stitch. Even its thread and lace weight, there's so much yarn that's built up into those stitches that the heavier the yarn is, the more bulky it is. And I was never, even in my teenage years when I was buying really cheap yarn on sale, I never wanted the bulky stuff. I would never make garments with worsted weight or even a DK sometimes, because they just look like, to me, they look too bulky. They look like the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. I mean, sometimes you're just so heavy. So I always pick, when I'm looking for stitches, or like in the case of Beachcomber, I came up with that design probably 12, 15 years ago. I just didn't find the right yarn for it yet. And so I was looking for something. So that's 100% lace weight yarn. It's done. And so, and it just drapes. It's got movement and stuff like that. So that's, to me, even on the coast, even in colder weather, lace weights, if you've got the right fiber, if it's got alpaca in it or, a good wool in it, you're going to have the warmth you need, even with a lace weight yarn. I mean, if you're making something that's got holes all over it, well, that's a different story. But this is more of a solid pattern. It's a waffle stitch. Right. So it's going to keep you warm. I was always looking for stuff that draped. Shawls, everybody loves my shawls, so I always wanted to make sure that my shawls, hung right, the colors were vibrant, and that a lot of times I let the yarn do the work. Like I have this one. This is a gradient shawl. Oops, wrong one. This is a gradient shawl. A very simple stitch. It's just double crochets with chain stitches in between. But I did it side to side, so the gradient went from one side to the other. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
So the yarn does the work as far as the color story, but it also lets the stitches shine, even though they're very simple stitches. So that's kind of how I pick stuff. Picked, colors. And then I always, like I said, I always like to use indie companies because I'm an indie.
Yeah.
And I think we need to support each other. I do use some bigger indies, like Anzula is a couple of the yarns I've got in there. And I also used, for the first time, I actually used Brooklyn Tweed's Veil in one of the designs. And I still consider him indie because he's new on the market, even though he's kind of grown into a bigger company.
I'm impressed by him. He is one person that I've never had on the podcast that I have requested podcast interviews, but I'm not going to call him recluse because that's not it. I've met him before. Just haven't had him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think that's good. And then I think it's good for people to know, what kind of yarns they're expecting, because there are a lot of people that listen to the show that only buy big box store yarns. There are people who, just like me several years ago when I first started, I didn't realize there was actually like yarn stores other than Walmart. And that's not even making a joke. Like, that's God's honest truth. And so, when people pick up your book and maybe they don't have a local yarn store close to them or whatnot, what would be your suggestion for them to even substitute yarn? Like what is something that they could go about doing? Because, for some people, it could be either the cost, it could be the lack of availability by them, even though there's online opportunities as well. But, what would be your suggestion?
Well, I know that a lot of people like to touch and feel too. So
absolutely. That's the nature of our craft.
Yeah. Well, first of all, in the book itself, I have a section on substituting yarns. I mostly talk about using heavier yarns because I do realize, in fact, I just did a survey with my newsletter, that more people use worsted weight that follow me than the finer yarns. And I'm known for the finer yarns. So I always have something in there about that. What I recommend is research the yarn that I used, find out the fiber content, the weight, that kind of thing. And then, if you're going to Michael's or Joann's or one of the other box stores, kind of try to find something that's similar. But the biggest thing is swatch. I know that is a dirty word in crochet for a lot of crocheters, but swatching and getting gauge is going to be the key to making any yarn other than what I used make the garment or the shawl look as close to what I've got.
Yep. Especially if it's a garment, you want to make sure that yarn's going to be able to hold up. I also want you to address the idea of, substituting a cotton for a wool or an acrylic for a wool, or, because there are people who just don't understand the differences.
Okay. What the thing about wool, whatever wool it is animal fiber. Let's call it animal fiber. Animal fiber has stretch and it has some memory to it, most of them. And so I usually use wools and alpacas and things like that, because I know for a garment that if it stretches a little bit, it'll spring back most of the time. When you start thinking about things like silk and linen and cotton, they'll stretch, but they won't come back. It's
plant fibers.
Plant fibers are definitely, I'm dating myself again, but I don't know if you remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, Forenza sweaters that were big V-necks. You could get them at the limited store. And I remember wearing them in high school. And in my senior year, I went to Catholic school. So my senior year, where seniors got to have a sweater, we picked these red Forenza sweaters. And by the second month of school, my arms were down to this long because they were cotton and linen. Yep. They don't stretch. So when you're making a garment, you always want to try to find a fiber. Because there's acrylics there's some acrylics out there that really good acrylics that have some memory to them.
Yeah.
And
acrylics have great memory. Like they don't, like their elasticity, they stick where they are.
Yeah, they do. The only thing with acrylics though is that if you kill the fabric, that's a designer term. Yep. You stretch it too far and it's not going to come back. I've had sweaters do that too. Yep. So, and then acrylic sometimes, depending on the type of acrylic, sometimes is too heavy, not even in a finer thread, and it just wants to stretch down your body.
Absolutely.
So you have to, these are why you have to swatch, you have to get your gauge, you have to, beat it up a little just to make sure it's going to be the right fiber. especially for a garment. It's
You're
not as
absolutely
critical with a shawl, but I still recommend doing it with shawls.
That's so funny. There's a commenter here from Emily Ritter. Hi, Emily. How are you? She says she spent hours trying to felt acrylic and then finally gave up because she learned that acrylic doesn't felt.
No.
But she's not the only one. I mean, I know many people that even a washable wool, or people like, I bought this wool and it won't felt. It's like, right, it's been treated so it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And it's something that we all need to learn. I'm just going to put a plug out here real quick for those of you out there who want to learn more about yarns and such. I highly recommend Clara Park's book. It's Knitter's Book of Wool or Knitter's Book of Yarn. I know it says knitters, but it applies for knitters and crocheters. The information in those books are invaluable, so I highly recommend those books if you want to learn more about yarn and fiber and all of that.
I have that book on my shelf, and it is always on my desk.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, I love this. I love that Coastal Crochet has come out. I mean, I've seen pictures of it everywhere. It feels weird because it feels sometimes like I'm in a crochet bubble, like it's like, is everybody really talking about this or that? But in my bubble world, a lot of people are talking about your book, and it's pretty exciting. This is not the end of the podcast, everybody, but I do want to give people a chance to win a copy of the book right now. So if you are listening live to this podcast, go ahead and in the chat area, I want you to type, I want to win. Type, I want to win. Make sure you have clicked the like button of this video, and hopefully you have subscribed to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. We will randomly select a winner live here on air to get a electronic copy, a digital copy of Coastal Crochet. So while you guys are putting that all on there, I'm going to keep talking to Karen, but I want you guys to not miss your opportunity to possibly win a book. So one of the things that I know people are always going to ask, do you still, obviously you just said about CGOA, do you still travel and teach? Are you going to try and go to more craft fairs and sell stuff in booths? Like, tell us a little bit about what the future of your designing career holds.
Well, the future definitely is continuing designing and writing books. I'm kind of addicted to this book thing now. So that's going to happen. But as far as teaching, I actually do have a couple events on the calendar that I can't share yet. One's next spring and one's next summer. But I've got them on the calendar, so you'll be watching for that. Next month, I'm going to Fiber Fusion Northwest here in Monroe, Washington. So if anybody's in the area, I'd love to see you. I've taught for them before, but this year we decided, because it's kind of like, it's a fiber show. It's kind of like if you've heard of Oregon Flock and Fiber or Rhinebeck. I mean, but it's really small. It's just Washington State. Maybe a few Idaho people come. But it's that type of show. And crochet and knitting classes don't sell. They just don't. It's all weaving, spinning, dyeing. So I'm having my first retail booth in the market this year, and I'm going to have all my books. I'm going to have the kits. I'm going to have a few other things. Early on in my career, I used to sew crochet hook cases, and so I'm bringing some of those back that I used to do. So those will be there. And I'll have, all sorts of stuff there, little treats and surprises. So if you're in the area, come to that. And I'm always looking to teach more places. So if you've got a local yarn shop, I travel nationwide. So if you're interested in having me out, let your yarn shops know, or your local event know, and I'll be there.
Fantastic. What about any future crochet alongs? So you did, you've done crochet alongs before and such, but do you have any future ones planned?
I do. The most current one, I think I mentioned earlier, is we're going to do the Deep Blue Sea crochet along, but that's going to be at one of my local yarn shops at Stilly River Yarns in Stanwood, Washington. And we're going to do it in her Facebook group as well as live. So if you're interested, I do have the information on my website to do that. But then in February, I am bringing back my mystery shawl crochet along. And
nice.
Yes, I'm very excited. And I'm actually teaming up with another local yarn shop, Perfectly Naughty, in Arlington, Washington. I'm going to do it live online with both my Ravelry group and my Facebook group. I do have a Facebook group, but I'm also going to do an in-store session as well. So if people live in locally, they can get, hands-on from me there as well. That's going to start February 7th.
Right.
And it'll be mystery. You'll get a clue I think we're going to do it every other week for that one. All of the information will start coming out end of December, beginning of January, just, to get all the details. But if you're on my newsletter, you'll hear it first.
All right. Yeah. All right, cool. Fantastic. Yeah. I want to just mention really quickly, chat room are saying that they lost their feed. I'm not sure why. People are trying to help them right now and telling them to refresh. So on my end, I am not seeing anything lost. I'm showing everything is still good to go and live, and it says the stream is okay. So I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully everybody heard all that. If you heard it but didn't see it, just so you know, you can still find out all that information on Karen's website, and all of that, all of her links and such are on the show notes, which I've put a link in the video description box below as well. All right, so Karen, many people, I mean, besides the fact that some of them are saying they lost the feed and they're refreshing, there are a lot of people who have said they want to win. So I am going to scroll up and down. You tell me when to stop. I will take my hand off of my mouse, and wherever the cursor is, that person will win. So you tell me when.
Okay. Stop.
All right. It always scares me. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the winner is, you ready? Karen Grand Prix. Karen Grand Prix. I feel like she's won before. I don't know why. Maybe it's just that the name is interesting and I remember, but I think she's won before. But congratulations, Karen. What I need you to do is email me at winner@yarnthingpodcast.com. winner@yarnthingpodcast.com with should she just her Ravelry ID, or does she need anything else?
I need her email address, because I have a special distribution program that I use for the PDF.
Okay, perfect. So that's what she'll do. Karen, a lot of Karens today. Karen Grand Prix. When you email me, just tell me what it is you won. I'll forward your email off to Karen, and Karen will send the ebook to Karen. So that'll work out. Pretty easy. Those of you who are not Karen Grand Prix, let me see. I'm gonna make sure I put this on here so that Karen knows she won. Congrats. Sorry, you gotta bear with me as I type. Those of you who are not Karen and you still want a chance to get a copy of this book, one, you can always order it. We've told you all the places you can check out. Worst case scenario, just always go to Karen Whooley's website. Again, the link is in the show notes. You can find them there. But the other way you can win is by leaving a comment on the show notes. So there's always a chance to win two different ways here on the podcast. There is the live comment winner, and then the person who leaves a comment on the show notes. When you go to the show notes to get the links and everything you need, at the bottom of the page, you'll see where it says leave a reply or leave a comment. And that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to leave a reply or leave a comment with the keyword seashore. Seashore, SEASHORE. Your keyword in that comment is sort of like your entry ticket. It's your golden ticket. It's the proof that you watched the show. And we will randomly select a winner in 4 weeks from today's air date to get their very own digital copy of Coastal Crochet. So if you still want a chance to win, make sure you leave your comment on the show notes with the keyword seashore. Now, heads up, everybody. I love, and I mean love, your comments here on YouTube, especially when they're nice. And I love your comments on Facebook and on Ravelry and all those good places. But we only choose a winner from the comments that are left on the show notes. We like to keep everything in one place. It makes it easier for us. And Caitlin's able to go in and just randomly pick a winner, and that person will get a copy of Coastal Crochet. Again, we're going to choose a winner in 4 weeks. So make sure you have left your comment by then, and that'll be good to go. So pretty easy stuff there. Thank you so much for offering the prizes, Karen.
Oh, no problem. Glad to do it.
All right. So as far as I can tell, it doesn't look like we're having any other trouble. People are saying that they can see everything now. So that's good. So glad they didn't miss anything big. That's so good. Do you want to talk about your book at all that you're coming out in spring of 2019?
I haven't released all the details yet.
Okay. So then we will.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that it is sponsored by Universal Yarns. and all the pieces will be done in their yarns, and it'll be coming out. I think the target date right now is the first Tuesday in May.
Okay.
We just finished up all the tech editing and the photography is all done, so it goes to layout in about 2 weeks. So
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So that's good. But in the meantime, people can absolutely pick up Coastal Crochet. They can follow you on Facebook, on Instagram, on Ravelry to find out all the wonderful things that you're doing here in the crochet community. 20 years strong. Do you think you have another 20 years in you?
I think so. I'd like to hope so.
Are you going to be the Margaret Hubert
Yeah,
of our generation?
Yeah.
I love Margaret. I love Margaret. So much fun. So much fun.
Too.
Karen, seriously, I love having you on the podcast. I'm so glad that you are out there putting together these wonderful crochet books, thinking about us plus size women as you're going through it. And I honestly, I wish you the most success for another 20 years. It's been an honor to be your friend thus far. And I just can't wait to see what else you have planned.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in to the Yarn Thing podcast today. We are glad you're here. We will not have a show next Tuesday on September 25th because I will be in San Francisco doing a Facebook Live with Creative Bug Facebook page. We will be sure to share the live video on the Marley Bird Facebook page and the Red Heart Facebook page as well. But I'm going to be there hanging out with my friend Faith and all of you friends of Faith. You want to make sure you hang out with us because we're going to have a good time. There'll be some prizes given away then. And then I come home from San Francisco, fly to North Carolina, and then I fly directly to New York, where I will be attending the event called The Making, MKNG. If you look up The Making, it's spelled like that, MKNG, in New York. I'll be there with Tamara Kelly of mooglyblog.com and Red Heart Yarn. So if you want to come by and say hello, get a picture with me, you know, all that good stuff. I would love that. I think I want to get a sign that says smash my like button, or something like that. Like, I mean, something corny. It'll be fun. So anyways, next week is a very busy week, but there will not be a podcast. However, you can still find me online, of course. And last but not least, the crochet along is going strong right now. Tomorrow will be week 2 instructions for the shawl. It's a really fun stitch. I hope you guys will tune in. And yeah, if you want more details about that, make sure you check out the Marley Bird Facebook page or the Facebook group specifically for the crochet along. All right, that's it from us today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.